as creators, we're not always able to see the impact that the work has, right?
The best content, it just happens, just effortlessly flows into your brain. That's the bigger question, is like, how do you do that?
Accidentally on purpose, basically, right? Google used to have this commercial. He created an email for his kid, and then he sent emails to that email address. And the idea being that like this kid would get this gift about them from their parent later on in life. And that stuck with me, and I created those email addresses for my 3 kids and my wife, but I can't wait for them to get that. I think that's a treasure, yeah.
I mean, it's why they always tell you to keep a journal, you know? What are the most reiterated pieces of life advice that you hear from these people?
Be good to other people. Time is limited. Whether you're walking around with a heart condition or a brain aneurysm, or you're just walking down the road, time is limited for every single one of us.
What would you tell somebody? You were asking him, how much do you document in your everyday life? Why? Tell me why I should. So before we dive into the episode today, I just wanted to give a quick intro to my guest, Kevin Pickard. He's one of the founders at Family Crest Studios, which is a production house that creates these life sketch films for these people and these families to capture their stories and how they met their spouse, how they raised their family, how they built the legacy they're leaving behind, all that stuff. And in my conversation with Kevin, we talk about the power of storytelling, the importance of preserving family memories, and why documenting everyday moments, even in the small ways, with something like your phone or writing it down on a piece of paper, can mean so much in the long run. I think you'll really enjoy this one. I have my own producer here. Usually I'm the producer for other people's shows.
Isn't that hard?
Yeah. So I'm going to open up with that question I asked you earlier. What does the word story mean to you?
So I think a story is someone's remembrance, something they remember. And then they tell and they share with other people. I think a story that isn't shared is kind of worthless. And I think even story doesn't necessarily have to be all the way true. It doesn't have to be a completely accurate memory. I mean, a lot of stories are better when, the fish gets a little bit bigger or the mountain gets a little bit higher, right? I think it makes it a little
100%.
bit more engaging, a little bit more entertaining. But yeah, I think a story is remembered by a person. I think it has to come from a person. Even I would say like an AI generated story is at some point on some level, that technology was trained by a human that had a memory or had an idea and captured it and wrote it down or produced it. And so that's what I think a story is. Yeah.
I love that. I love that thought. And especially with the AI thing, I love how, I just think with AI, so many people think that it is a made up thing, sort of, but it is really modeled after all, 7-8 billion of us. Right. And so to some extent, it can replicate real things.
Absolutely.
And I like that. I've never heard that take, that it can replicate true stories the way that you just explained it, but I like that. What is it that has brought you to that belief of stories being a remembrance shared by a person?
I guess it's probably the business that we're in, right? I mean, we love hearing people's stories. That's our bread and butter, is tell us your story. And in some cases, it can be tell us your story before it's too late. We don't like to focus too much on that, but the reality is that often we are giving people an opportunity to share their story, not just with us, but with their family before it's too late, which is, it's an uncomfortable reality, but it is the reality, right? We're all going to go eventually. I think stories, that kind of, that impression has come just from the fact that we interact with people and hear their stories often. Yeah.
So what is it that you would call your specific genre? Would you call it like a life sketch film? Is that too accurate, or is that too far off? Like
it's hard.
What do you tell people when you say, I make videos? Yeah. What kind of videos? Yeah. What would you say?
The term we're using now is life story video. We want to hear, I think we love to hear those stories that people have discounted themselves and don't realize how interesting and entertaining and important they are. So it could be the story they've told 100 times, but now they're telling it in a way that gets captured sort of durably, right? It's going to be there. It's on film with good audio, with good lighting, they're telling it to someone who's never heard it before. So they get to embellish it just a little bit. They get to make that mountain or that fish just a little bit bigger. And so they get to share that feeling. We also get to capture what it feels like to be in the room when they're telling the story, right? We want their kids, their grandkids, and hopefully 100 years from now, kids, to be able to say, oh, when I was in, if I could have been in the room with Edgar, Jerry, Mary, whatever, this is what it would have felt like to be around them. And this is what their mannerisms were. And this is what their sense of humor was like. And this is how they kind of emoted and how their face changed when they went from like serious to sarcasm or whatever. So you get a sense for who that person is through the stories that they tell. Yeah. So yeah, life story is the term I think we've grabbed onto. We're still in a mode where, that could change, who knows, 3 more times before we consider ourselves settled on exactly what it is we do. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing now, and we're loving it. Like we thought it was, we thought our goal was to make it like as painless as possible. We didn't want it to make it too horrible, because we've seen other examples, and we've, when you kind of sit someone down in a formal setting with gear and with and you prepare a set, they tend to get nervous and they tend to kind of clam up and they tend to kind of not.
Absolutely.
They don't really want to do this, right? My name is John and I did. And so we hope to not have that happen. But what we found instead is they open up. Within about 15 minutes, everybody just kind of opens up. They forget about the cameras. They forget about the lights. Because their loved ones are around, smiling at them, because we're interacting with them, because we're giving them feedback and helping them feel good about what they're doing. By the time we're done, they want to go another couple hours, and they want to keep, and they've remembered stuff they haven't thought about in years, and they've remembered people and events, and like it's like a really nice meal. After you're done, you're like, let's have a little bit more, right?
Yeah. What I think is cool about what you guys do is, at the core of what we do is we capture moments in time and we freeze them. Yeah. We freeze moments in time. Too often I think, and it's not wrong to focus on any other genre or aspect of any other creative endeavor, weddings or sports or fitness or whatever it might be, real estate. But I think my most fulfilling pieces have come from when I can say, look at how young we were at this point. Look who was still with us in this video, in this at this person's wedding. Look whose grandma was still with us or whatever. And I did a documentary with Farm Bureau, who I work for, and we did like this farming a legacy thing. And it was actually my family farm operation.
Oh, for real?
My family's farm that we did it on. So it was cool. They're like, do you know a family? And I'm like, I know a family.
Maybe.
Yeah. But it was like really cool to show grandma and grandpa. Who knows how much longer they'll be here? I'd love it for them to be here another 20 years, but you just don't know. And it was cool to show their mannerisms and their personality, talking about the farm and the family and the legacy. And that is something that when you can do it with the phone and it's fantastic and it's great. Anything is better than nothing. Yeah. But when you can do it in polished format, it means a lot to pull it up on the TV.
And to help them feel like, we also thought that most people were going to hate looking at themselves, right? They weren't going to want to watch their own videos.
Because we all say we do.
We all are like, is that really what I look like? Or is that really what I sound like? Instead, when they see it, because we usually do a watch party with most of our clients or customers, and they get a kick out of it. They love it because like you said, we've polished it and we've made it look as good as we possibly can. Yeah, every video we're doing is still getting just a little bit better. So it's a really cool progression that way. But to your point about how your grandma and grandpa, most people we find will feel like, I'm too old or I don't want to do this. But the reality is they're never going to be any younger than they were when we captured that memory, right? When we froze that thing, and in 10 years time, they're going to, man, I wish I had done that more often, right? Why didn't I do more of that, right? Because I looked great then compared to how I look now, or I sounded great, or I remembered more. It's really funny how we're always like, I'm too fat, I got to wait till I've lost weight or whatever. And the reality is you're great the way you are, and you're going to be just a little bit older next time. So let's do it now, right? Now is never too early and it's never too late. Yeah.
Absolutely. If Yeah, if you were to look at my folder structure, I mean, I've got all of my client projects and all of my work projects. Yeah. And then I have this entire folder that's just like memories by year. And so all of my like iPhone photos and my wife's and when I was living with my family still, like all memories of me and my siblings. Yeah. And those are the funnest things. I don't look back at the client stuff, you know, maybe once in a blue moon. Yeah. But more often than not, I have a sibling or my wife or like we ask each other, do you remember that one time? Do you still have that picture? And I'm like, yeah, I got it. You know, go through this month and year and whatever. And to another point, just to reiterate this whole point, for the last family reunion, they brought out this big old, I think it originally was recorded on a record, but they had turned it into a CD. Anyways, it was like my great grandparents talking around the dinner table in like the 70s or
audio?
Something like that. It was just audio.
Yeah.
And
but
just to hear their voices.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And like we would have given anything to have a whole hour more of that, you know, and it was like maybe 5 minutes total, but it was still like, and of course technology made it a lot easier. It's not anybody's fault to not have more of that. Yeah. But you realize, you hear that and you're like, holy cow. Yeah. Like that's like, you just kind of forget about your ancestors more often than we like to admit. You don't
Absolutely.
think about them.
My mom passed away a few years ago and I have voicemails from her that are precious to me, right? Of her just saying nothing. I mean, she didn't know this was going to be something I'd save, right?
Nothing fantastic.
And I as like a kind of a technology, you know, photography, videography, audio nerd, like that is how you'd have to describe me. I'm like, how did I miss out? Like, why don't I have more? Why didn't I just sit down with her and record? And to your point, I mean, anything is better than nothing. Like a voice memo on a phone is priceless later on. And you take something and you add time to it and it becomes valuable, right? Yes. And so as long as you can capture those memories, that's another thing we like to do is if we talk to a lead or a prospect and they're like, look, the budget is just not where we're at, we love to help people come up with ideas to do something. And we'll even like offer a service. Well, we'll remind them from time to time, you know, hey, do you want us to ping you every month or every 3 months and just kind of say, hey, have you gotten a chance to do that thing you wanted to do? Have you gotten a chance to interview, whether it's just with your phone next to a window or whether it was, you know, just recording on your phone, just audio. Have you had a chance to, you know, get a tape deck out if that's what you've got? Like anything will do. And ask them some questions, or get them to write it down. There's all kinds of online services now, right, that'll send an email with a prompt and say, hey, you know, Grandma, tell me about the time you went to high school or whatever, that kind of stuff. So do something is kind of what we also try to push for,
Absolutely, Anything is better. Like we both said, anything is better than nothing. I think about a lot of my ancestors or just great aunts or great uncles or grandpas that have, like my aunts or parents have put little papers that they, like letters or pages from their diaries or their notebooks onto like family history or whatever, whatever that site's called. And just like stuff like that is cool to go through. Really cool. So my question for you is, what is one piece or two, what are the most reiterated pieces of advice, life advice that you hear from these people?
Be good to other people. That's almost universal. Whether, I will say, some of the people that we interview turn that into more of a religious slant, right? And some of them don't. But the overriding theme is just be a good person and treat other people well, is what it really comes down to. Which is funny because, I have little kids now. And I had a little kid who was going to see a friend of theirs who she hadn't seen in a long time, and she was kind of nervous, like, I don't know if we're gonna get along or whatever. And it's just like, be nice to her. And I was like, wow, I hear that a lot. Just be nice to her and she'll be nice to you. Like, just be a friend, just be friendly, just be, just forget about, yourself for a minute and think about somebody else and how they feel. We hear that a lot. And it seems to be, the recurring theme from the wise that we get to talk to, the people who can look back and see when they've been happiest and when they've been able to help the most and when they've been able to do the most is when they were being kind to other people.
So tell me, what's the most fulfilling part of what you do within this genre?
The most fulfilling part has got to be the interaction between the other family members. So usually most people aren't working with us directly and hiring us directly to capture their own story, right? It's usually an adult child, son or daughter, of the subject, of the client.
Because they realize time is precious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most people don't, I think they would feel a little conceited to say, hey, you need to come video me. It's often, hey, please come capture my mom or dad's story. And so those people that are typically the people that are signing the contract and paying the fee are intimately involved with the process, right? We go to them and provide them with a list of questions to ask their family members and the other people involved in that person's life to know what questions do they want answered during the interview and during the filming process. So they get really involved. They know all the questions that are going to be asked, and they're typically there on the day of filming too. And sometimes, if it makes the most sense, they'll be the person actually asking the questions. It all kind of depends on the format we're going for, and each person is just a little bit different. We'll have our own people do the interviewing, or we'll have a family member. But either way, they're going to be on set. They're going to be hearing it. And to watch their reaction kind of just out of the corner of your eye as the questions get answered and as they hear something they'd never heard before, or as they learn some fact or some piece of history that they'd never heard before. When you hear a husband talk about how much he loves his wife, or you hear a wife talk about how much she loves her husband, and you keep in mind that often these people they're talking about have already passed, right? Their husband or their wife is already gone and they're the one left. And then to see that reaction from their adult child now of how, to see firsthand how much they loved each other, how close they were, I mean, that's priceless. And you know that what you're doing is important, right? And you know that, so that child feels like the reality of that kind of care that they had, that those parents had. And now we're hoping their children, their grandchildren, can feel that same reality. Man, grandma and grandpa loved each other. And we're hoping that next generation, wow, great grandma and great grandpa really loved each other.
Yeah.
We're hoping that can carry down, because I think we lose track of that. We lose track of that love, that closeness in relationships, and how important it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. How long are these films typically?
Well,
I guess how long is the filming? How long is the filming, and then how long is the final deliverable? Yeah.
So the filming options we have are really just two. We've simplified it down to half day or full day. And both of those kind of mean an arbitrary amount of time. It's not exactly 4 hours or exactly 8 hours. We'll film as long as they're willing to be filmed, as long as they have stamina. Oftentimes we'll say, feel free to take as many breaks as you want. Feel free to take a nap at the age that most of the clients are. They're used to taking a nap during the day, and we're totally fine with that. We can go get Chick-fil-A and we can decompress and we can, calm down and we can regroup, and they can take their nap, and we'll come back and we'll leave all of our stuff in their location. And then we'll come back and we'll get going again. But it's either half day or full day. And then the thing we've learned is that when we first started out, we wanted these things, the more interesting the person seemed like they were going to be, the longer we wanted to capture, hours and days. The very first one we did was a gentleman who's 100 years old. He had turned 100 not long before we interviewed him. And he had this story where he had been trained as a bomber pilot in World War II, but never dropped a single bomb. Instead, he dropped cartons of food over occupied territories in Europe.
Kind of like the candy bomber.
Yes,
exactly.
Not the same guy, exactly. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. But it was Operation Chow Hound, I think is what it was called. Yeah. And we thought, well, this is an amazing story. We filmed him 3 days. And we ended up, his final video was 2 hours long. And we did a watch party, and we were super stoked because there's all these really cool things, and the family's watching. And at one point, they kind of turned around and looked at us how much longer is this? And we're like, even this family who loves this man to death is still thinking, this is a little bit longer than it needs to be. Maybe we don't need as much of this. So we've realized that you can capture unlimited amount of information, limited stories, but if it's not watchable, nobody's going to watch it. So we've gotten into the habit of editing things down. Our customers will still get every scrap of video footage of every answer or every question being answered, and we'll provide that to them. but we'll condense it down into about a 30 to 45 minute video of sort of the best, right? Sometimes we'll take their input if we think we need it on what is to them the best of the best. Oftentimes it's pretty obvious in general, objectively, what are the best of the best stories and what's the most meaningful nuggets to hold on to. And so customers will get, like I said, all of those answers. Depending on the package they choose, that'll either just be one really long video of everything, kind of all the ums and the ahs and dead air cut out, and we'll just camera switch, and then we'll put that all together in just one, 1.5, 2 hour video that maybe only the most diehard child is going to watch, once every few years.
For the full length.
Right.
Yeah.
And then everyone also gets those 30 to 45 minute sort of feature length video, we call it. And that's what we expect that, the grandkids, the great grandkids, the teens are going to watch. And then also, depending on the package, we'll provide what are essentially reels, right? Like small, attention grabbing, really entertaining stories about, grandma meeting grandpa, or we have one lady talking about her arm going right through an old manual washing machine, stuff like that. Just being goofy stories that to them is nothing, but once you cut it down and edit it and you add a little bit of music behind it, it's gold, right? And so we think that's the way that the adult mom and dad are going to get their kids and their grandkids to care just a little bit more about grandma. They can post that on Instagram for their family to watch, and suddenly these kids who love their grandparents or their great-grandparents, right, but don't think of them as something in the forefront because they don't see them on TikTok or they don't see them on Instagram, all of a sudden can look at it and go, wait a second, that's my grandma, that's my grandpa in this beautifully professionally filmed setting. And then they can start sharing with their friends.
I was going to say, put it on their stories.
Exactly,
hey, look at my grandma.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
We love that. No, it's all good. We love being able to provide that to them. So it really does depend on the package, right? We've got 3 or 4 different packages of editing. So we kind of split it up into 2 phases. We have the filming, and then we have the editing. And for some people, baby budget just dictates that we film. And the good news about that is that the time-sensitive part is done, right? And the filming's is pretty economical. That's why we have that half day or full day. Once we've set up all our gear, you folks know, once you set up all your gear, you may as well shoot as long as you can, right? I mean, it costs about the same.
Take advantage.
Yeah. So let's just get as much as we can, and in those full day options, it sort of unlocks another tier of editing that we can provide, where we can. The last project we did, we got a gentleman who was a jazz drummer. Amateur, semi-professional jazz drummer, pianist, an artist, a photographer, and we're gonna get all this footage of him doing these things, playing the drums, playing the piano. And so all of this essentially B-roll, right, that we can weave into the story as he's talking about his life. That's when it can really start getting really, really beautiful and really interesting and really entertaining and watchable. So we love it when that option is chosen, because we can do an even better job, right? It's like if we just get someone talking about, their childhood and maybe meeting their spouse, there's only so much you can do with that. But if you get them really to kind of open up and start being themselves and telling all their jokes and being who they really are and talking about what's buried under that tree and that kind of stuff, right? That's when you can really start putting together a really cool story. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what you're doing reminds me, have you ever heard of the story brand concept?
No.
I can't remember who it's written by, but the book is called Story Brand. I think there's like a Story Brand 2.0, and the whole concept is make your customer the hero in their own story. Like, we all want to be the hero for everybody's story, but what we need to position ourselves as is like the guide in their story and make them the hero of their own.
That's
and so
exactly what we're doing.
I was gonna say, you guys are a perfect example of that, because you can show this person, their spouse, their kids, their grandkids, great grandkids, that these guys were the hero of their own story. And it seems like not a self-righteous way or a self-serving way, like a really cool, I'm going to capture as much as I can to show as many generations forward.
Yeah, and with some people, you've got to pull it out, right? And others, they love talking about themselves, but not everybody does. So you've got to really kind of be listening at the same time as thinking about the next question to ask. And you kind of, you open one door and you look down the hallway and you see 10 other doors and like, which of those doors is going to be the most interesting room, right?
Right,
yeah.
right.
Kind of got to do that. Yeah.
How do you how do you determine which one is the most interesting room
it's
to
hard.
join?
It's
Like
really hard.
what is the most, how do you find what's the most watchable story?
It's kind of intuition, and we're getting better at it. It's a skill that we're acquiring, right? So far, I guess a little background on the company is that there's 4 of us that are owners, managers, whatever. So it's really 2 married couples. So Trent and his wife, and me and my wife. And we've had opportunities where I've been the person interviewing, where my wife Casey's been interviewing, where Trent's been interviewing. We haven't gotten Kayla yet, but she's like on deck. She's ready to go. And it's funny because each of us sort of has a different style. But if we listen to the way that the other people have done it, we kind of start to pick it up. So we're all kind of collectively getting a little bit better at it and getting a little bit better intuition. And sometimes it's, sometimes we kind of accidentally, they mishear us and they tell us something that we weren't expecting to get an answer. And it's like, well, that's great. We'll go that way too. We even had a gentleman who, the family was pretty nervous about even like undertaking the project because he has pretty severe dementia. And I don't know if he's, diagnosed with Alzheimer's or not, but essentially has Alzheimer's. And we just told him, look, let's do our best. Let's try to get what we can. If it's nothing, don't worry about it. And if he's just confused or he doesn't understand or this doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out, it's no big deal. But let's give it a try. And what we found out is, when you want, we do want spontaneous answers, right? We don't really give the questions until about 24 hours before we do the interview because we don't want someone rehearsing and planning and thinking and stewing over what the questions are. We want kind of authentic answers. Well, when someone has dementia, they gave us authentic answers about 12 times about the same subject. And we actually got amazing coverage on that one topic because every time he told us this one thing that had happened to him, it was the first time.
Like a fresh thing.
Yes, it was a fresh take. And little bits came out sort of in dribbles, right? Each time he'd tell us. And I know at first, when that first started to happen, I kind of said, hey, let's stop real quick. And I talked to his daughters who were there and I just said, just so you know, this is actually a dream come true for us. Like this doesn't bother us at all because we're going to be able to edit this down into something that all makes sense. The last thing we want to do is make him look old or make him look like he's forgotten his memory. So we're going to edit all these 12 different versions down into one. And we're going to get all these details that you want out of it. And it's going to be great. And so that really helped everybody relax, right? It's like, hey, it's kind of like you and anyone else in sort of this role. You want to make the person on the other side of the table look as good as possible. You want to ask them questions that helps them, come alive and shine. And then you're going to, all the times when I've said horrible things and sworn and thrown stuff, you're going to edit all that out.
That's right. Yeah. This is only going to be like half as long
That's
as
right.
the
It's
recording.
going to be a 45-second recording. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're filming these things, this is a lot of I can't tell which questions are coming from the podcaster side of me versus like the nerd side that I just want to understand.
For sure.
But tell me, as far as like, do you do a 50-50 split between recording just the interview and then do you like take them around to like their childhood places like the park or their original house, or do anything like that, or is it more like just pictures on top of the original A-roll, like B-roll, A-roll thing? Like what is it?
We do a lot of pictures. If the family has access to pictures, that's great. We're happy to scan as much as they've got, really. If not, if it was funny, the first, 3 or 4 people we interviewed, it seems like they all were born in Ogden. And so the first one we did a lot of research and found old pictures of Ogden hospitals and Ogden main streets and, what Ogden looked like out in, 3 avenues up from Main Street, which was farmland or whatever. So we had all this great old Ogden, roughly around the same era Ogden picture. And so Ogden's covered. Same thing for Providence or Logan or whatever. So we do add a lot of those pictures. What we will do, going around to the places gets pricey, right? From a logistics perspective and a filming perspective. We are doing that more often now with some of the larger packages and some of the, I guess, the closer friends and family projects that we're doing right now, the ones that are, I guess, personally more important to us. We're doing a lot more of that. We'd love to be able to offer that. We're just trying to figure out how to do that without losing money, right, on the project. But we do use a lot of pictures. We use a lot of like public domain stuff. And my wife and Trent are really good at finding those things. You know,
That's
he
awesome.
talks about going to pilot school at some place in some state, and somehow they find, you know, this picture of that school, and bam, there it is. And the family goes, yeah, that's where it was. Yeah, so it's cool.
Tell me how you got involved in this. You're telling me right before we recorded. I just love to hear that story again. Tell me like I'm not the same person that asked, because the way you told it to me, I was like, man, I wish we were recording. It was so good.
Yeah. So I have a friend. His name's Tom Dillatouche. And he and I worked at the company I've worked for 17 years called ServiceNow. He was one of the original founding members of the company. Great, brilliant technical mind. We became closer friends with Tom than I had been just through work. And then fast forward, I want to say 10 or 12 years between him moving to Utah and when he got a diagnosis of ALS. It turns out he's got this type of ALS that is really not good. And he knew, I mean, he had done everything, kind of knew how to do everything. He had knowledge of everything. He knew everyone. He was this amazing person. And I'm thinking, we're going to lose that resource. I mean, like it or not, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's a year, but we're going to lose that resource. And I just had this feeling like maybe, and I had all this equipment and gear that I felt like you always kind of feel like you're never using it enough, right? Maybe I should get Tom, sit down with him and just get him to tell his story. It felt a little weird to get that personal with him and to ask him to do that, but I just couldn't shake that feeling. So finally I sent him a message. I said, hey, Tom, can we do this? And he said, absolutely, I'd love to. By the time I took all my gear up there and put it in his garage and kind of built a little set and figured out what I was going to do, the next time I was up there, he had lost his ability to walk. He couldn't move like one half of his body. His speech had become super slurred. He couldn't really breathe on his own. So it was not feasible to do an interview with him anymore, really. And so we switched to people I knew that knew Tom, interviewing them and asking them about how did they meet Tom? When did they meet Tom? Tell me a Tom story. Tell me, what's so great about Tom? We all love Tom, but why? Why do we love him? Why do we think he's so great? And we started that project. And I think I interviewed 3 or 4 people that knew him. And the next thing I know, one of them's calling saying, hey, it's basically the end. Like, we're all going up there and we're going to be with him while he passes away. It was incredibly hard to be there with someone who had gone from, perfectly healthy to passing away, essentially not being able to breathe anymore on their own in a little over a year. And it kind of sparked this feeling in me that there's an urgency to this work, right? Time is limited. I mean, whether you have a diagnosis of ALS or not, time is limited. Like whether you're walking around with a heart condition or a brain aneurysm, or you're just walking down the road, time is limited for every single one of us. And so it kind of kicked me in the butt, right? And it was like, you got to get started on this. If this is what you want to do, and it really felt like something I wanted to do, you got to do it now. You got to get started. And so, I talked to my friend Trent, who was, through his own experiences, having the same feeling, the same thoughts, wanting to do the same type of work. And we were like, well, I guess we got to start a company,
That is really cool.
It is way cool.
How have you seen that experience influence the way that you approach this now?
Well, I will say that what it's taught us is that we like to say it's never too early and it's never too late. So even though Tom's gone and I can't interview him directly, there are tons of people that knew him, that know him. His wife's still around. We can make an amazing project just posthumously, right? Just talking about someone who's passed away. So that urgency, while it is urgent, is I guess it doesn't feel so frantic as it did at one point. And what we would love to do is we would love for this project to be, this company to be so successful that we can start providing this service to terminal patients. Somebody like Tom who's received a terminal diagnosis, we would love as a nonprofit to be able to parachute in for a day or two and interview that person and give their family and them a gift that guarantees they won't be forgotten, that guarantees the things they want to say get said. That's really what we would love to do. We just got to figure out how to get to that point and make it so that it's not a complete charity for us. We unfortunately aren't, we aren't independently wealthy enough to be able to do that kind of thing. So, but we would love to be able to provide that service to whoever needs it. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think of the movie Coco by Disney and just that
yeah,
guy.
Remember Me. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It makes me just think that none of us want to pass away being completely forgotten. Yeah. And that movie gets me every time. I love that movie.
Yeah, there's an Friend that we all want to be on, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There's some good moments in that movie. But yeah, it just makes me think like, man, like the ability that I have, even if I'm mainly doing like podcast and business work and social media stuff and regular videos, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, just it's a really cool opportunity to capture things as they are. And
I wish I had, gone to every neighbor's house during COVID and just said, what's going on in your house today? I wish I had just captured that. How cool would that be?
That would have been
to be able to share with people or to compile what was it like for your family during COVID? Maybe they didn't give a crap and maybe they were super serious about it and no judgments at all. It's like, it would just be interesting to capture that spectrum of what was life like, right? We moved, we basically came up to Paradise and stayed at a house up here during COVID. So everybody kind of handled it differently. And this was something that affected effectively the whole world, right? So to be able to capture those things would be amazing. We'd love to be able to do stuff on sort of that lateral scale too as well, right? To kind of get a slice of everyone's day would be a cool project to do as well. Yeah.
I mean, it's why they always tell you to keep a journal. Yeah. I used to keep a journal not super frequently. I was always like, once every couple months maybe. And then maybe about a year ago I switched over to doing video journals. And so and I don't even like get out the big cameras and do this. I still haven't done it in like a month or two. But I started doing these video journals about a year ago where I just on my way to work or as I'm walking around the house or something, awesome. I just whip out the phone, literally, it's just like voice memos or whatever.
And you talk to your future self?
Or usually like the camera app, either that or voice memo. So it's either an audio or a video journal. But yeah, I just say, hey, here's what my wife and I have been doing. Here's how work's going. And I try to make it not so like, here's how work's going every single time.
Yeah.
But it's like,
well, work's a big part of your life, so that's kind of what you're going to think about.
And it is what I think about all the time. Yeah. But just doing that is like, it makes me a little bit more like, I'm going to have something to look back at. That's
those
the everyday
little
life.
Nuggets in aggregate are going to be, I mean, I don't know if you're planning on having kids or not, or if you have kids, but those little things in aggregate are going to be, they're going to be gold. I have from my mom 2 letters she wrote with her own hand. One, I think I was on my first birthday, and one was maybe my second or third or something. That's all I've got. If they were 3 lines each and I had 45 of them or 40 of them, that value would have been a little bit higher than 2-page documents, right? Especially when it spreads over time. Google used to have this commercial where it showed a dad, I think, he created an email for his kid, and then he just sent emails to that email address with pictures and video and stories and stuff. And then it kind of showed it over a long period of time. And the idea being that like this kid would get this gift of almost like a journal about them from their parent later on in life. And that stuck with me. And I created those email addresses for my 3 kids and my wife. And I will say I'm not quite as frequent as I'd like to be, but I would say at least once every 6 months, they'll get an email that, especially when something so substantial happens in my life, or I'm having a really hard day, or I'm having a really great day, or they just did something that cracked me up beyond, I can't not share it with them because I know they're going to forget it. I'll send that little email to them, or if I take a great picture of them, I'll send that picture off to them. And I really can't wait. I mean, I don't think I'll be around when they get the password to that account and they open it up and read it. But I can't wait for them to get that. I think that's a treasure. Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went on my wife and I went on a trip to North Idaho, like a week-long trip in the summer. And after every 2 or 3 days, it wasn't a daily thing, but every now and then we'd be like, hey, let's pull out the little GoPro and just talk to the GoPro and say, hey, here's how our trip's gone. And we didn't share it with anybody. We didn't want to share it with anybody. We just wanted something more than just the pictures to scroll through. We wanted ourselves talking to our future selves, just saying, here's the fun we've had. And all the little moments along the trip of like, oh, do you remember when we saw like 38 of the 50 states license plates on that long road trip? Yeah,
that's awesome.
like stuff like that, or whatever number it was. And all the little, like just the tiny little things, like you said, along, like over time add up to mean more than this big long 5-page essay.
And you're time traveling basically, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking
exactly.
to you might be talking to yourself when, you're mad at him or you're mad at her, or right? Like, and you can look back at that, and that can, everything was good that day, and here's why, and here's what we were doing, and everything's all right? Like you can look back on that as like almost like a medication or something for the relationship in some ways. Yeah.
I haven't looked at it like that, but that's totally true. Yeah. Do you have a particular project that you're most proud of? And you don't have to share names or make it, you don't have to reveal anything like that.
It kind of feels like picking a favorite kid, honestly, which I couldn't do if I tried. I will say that there are a few that mean more to me in a particular way. Like this one was far more humorous than any others. This guy that we interviewed who had dementia, his humor was off the charts. I mean, like, take dad jokes, multiply them by 10, wrap them in, Chevy Chase, and then add some sarcasm on top. That's who this guy is. He's just so, he's just incredible. And it's funny because his jokes would land every time, even if they were the same joke a little bit. So from a humor perspective, that's at the top of my list. From a perspective of, I guess most improved. So this lady we spoke with, this really, really sweet lady we spoke with, was so nervous when we showed up, and she was so anxious, and she was just like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't think I've got anything to share. I don't think, I haven't really experienced that much. I'm not exactly sure where I'm doing this, but I'll try. To the end result, 4 or 5 hours later, I mean, she sang for us. She told us amazing stories. She told us hilarious stories, and she gave heartfelt advice and, wishes for her family. She said a prayer for her family. This really lovely Catholic lady gave us these amazing memories to share with her family, and they loved it, right? I mean, and this is a big family too, right? This is a family out in Arizona, and they absolutely loved it. And I mean, I can say that when we left, I think this is true of everyone we've done so far. We started out in this habit of just calling everyone grandma or grandpa so-and-so. So grandma so-and-so, grandpa so-and-so. We had to stop doing that for logistical purposes because some last names are more common, and you can't have more than one grandma so-and-so or grandpa so-and-so. So we have changed our kind of our naming convention, but we do still think of them as a little bit our grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or whatever, right? Because by the time we leave, we've almost fallen in love with them just a little bit, right? We've got that because they've been honest and open with us, and they've told us things. I don't think anyone's ever shared anything that they regret sharing, but they've told us very personal and private things, knowing that we would honor that responsibility and we would keep it special. And we weren't going to, anything that would make someone look less than ideal, we just cut that out, and it ends up on the floor, and no one ever sees that. We had one gentleman who said something, and his wife snapped back real quick and said, kind of corrected him, and he gave this look on his face, and it didn't portray them in the best way. And we're like, yeah, that's going, no one's ever going to see that. So we do kind of take that responsibility pretty heavily, and so we'll say that, yeah, every single one we do is special to us in a different way, I think. But those are the ones that matter, or that personally we've been kind of like, we'll never forget those guys.
I think that's a good, really well put. Just the responsibility of making sure that we represent our customers, our subjects in the best light possible. Yeah. I think it's not something that's easy to understand at first, but you look back at the stuff that you've done, and I can not off the top of my head, but I know there's instances where I said, I wish I wouldn't have put that part in, whether it's about myself, like a video I made of myself for social media, talking to the camera, or another person. Not that I really shed a bad light on them, but just one of those small things, like you said, it doesn't make them a bad couple to have a little snicker at each other.
Right.
And we all have it. It totally happens. But for the sake of the video that you're making, I totally agree with what you said of just make sure you represent them in the best light.
The best light. I mean, we set up lights, we set up cameras, we do it to make them look the best physically. We should do the same thing when we edit too. Yeah. That's the goal. Yeah.
A lot of the videos that I do for Farm Bureau Federation in Idaho is they're kind of like these farmer family recaps. They're similar to what you guys do, but not to the same extent. And I'm not going to compare because I know you guys do fantastic work that is just like capturing these guys' life stories. But what we do a lot of the time is these farmers and their families that have won these awards within agriculture. And so we go to their farms, we tell their story about when we were 20 and when we got married, we started this farm, and then we had 4 kids and they had 20 grandkids or whatever. And it is just what you're telling me and all these different things kind of reminds me of these same families. We started out with 20
acres at a mule, and then we went to 50 acres, and then we had 400 head of cattle. That's awesome, man.
Right.
That sounds so cool.
To be able to represent them in the same light and or to the same extent of what you guys are doing, to an extent of what you guys are doing is really, really cool. And
it's special, huh?
But occasionally we'll have these videos that'll show on a banquet, like a farmer's banquet. Or we have the annual convention that we have like 300 or 400 farmers come to, and we show, hey, this family won an award, or this couple, 60, 70, 80 years old, won this award, and here's their whole family watching their video in front of all these other farmers that respect them. It's so cool. Really cool opportunity to show just... Because I think, totally different discussion, not to get political or anything, but there's a lot of people that just don't respect farmers and agriculture anymore,
It's easy when you can just go to the grocery store and buy a box of cereal to not have any idea where any of that stuff came from. It's really cool. Because, when you're talking about a farm, you're talking about like multi-generational legacy, right?
Yes, exactly.
This isn't just some land. This isn't just some people who hire employees and do none of the work. Like, these are people who literally planted things in the ground when they started out themselves, and they tended that stuff, and they weeded and they watered, and they worked themselves to death,
and
right?
prayed for rain.
Yes. And then they taught their kids how to do it. And some of them became wildly successful at it, and good for them, right? Because we need that. We need that food supply. We need people who do that kind of work. Man, that's a cool thing to be able to do. Yeah. I'm a little envious.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It is. And I would say that even if they didn't make a ton of money, just like probably 97% of the people that I meet through Farm Bureau, like these farmers and ranchers, I would even say higher, like almost 100% of the people that I meet through Farm Bureau, the grandparents, the parents, the kids, the great-grandkids are fantastic people. Like just salt of the earth, fantastic people. Really like just amazing people. Even if they didn't make a ton of money, they made enough to keep the farm going. They kept it going. They taught their kids the values that matter. They turned their kids and grandkids into great people. Anyways, just a really cool experience there. So to hit on the buzzword of success. Yeah. What is a myth about success that you've had to unlearn within your genre, industry?
That's a really good question. Well, we've had to define I guess to answer your question, the myth is that there is a sort of static thing that is success and then there's failure, right? Success can mean so many different things, right? You can talk about financial success, you can talk about emotional success, you can talk about feeling fulfilled. One thing when we started this company, I told Trent, and Trent and I kind of agreed on, and our wives agreed with us, was like, look, if, I wouldn't say we've bet the farm on the company, but we've sunk a substantial amount of money. This gear is not cheap. So we've bought plenty of gear, and we did it because we felt strongly that this could have value from a financial perspective, but really that like we were going to do something that mattered. And I think there's just inherent luck, God, whatever you want to call it, will be on your side if you're doing something that matters, right? And so I kind of made it clear to Trent and to my wife and his wife, Trent's wife, that, if we've spent this money and if we spend this time and all we end up doing is making videos for a few people, and we realize that we can't make this work financially, like if there's just not a market or there's not enough of a repeat market to do this, I will still consider it a success because we've gotten to try and we will have learned so much through failing. Like, I guess that's been a theme for my life is, as a software engineer before I did this, you learn the most when you screw up the worst. Like if you break something real good, you're going to learn a lot about that thing and quick, and you're going to figure out how to not let that happen again. Mark Rober talks about this, and my son does Mark Rober's build boxes. And so he talks about thinking like an engineer, right? We learn from our mistakes, and that's part of life too. So I've tried to make it clear to the other investors, the participants in the company, that even if this ends up being we go out of business and we don't continue after 3 or 4 years of really giving it our all, I think we'll still have been successful. Now, maybe not from a financial perspective, but from what we were trying to accomplish, what we were trying to learn, who we were trying to help, what we were trying to create, I think we will have been successful. So I think there's this myth that success looks like I get to drive a Ferrari and failure looks like anything else, right? And it's really not that cut and dry. Like to your point about the farmers, right? They managed to feed their family, to grow their family, to support their family, to help other people. That they were out there helping other people whenever they could, and they were getting help from other people whenever they could. They were making relationships. They were caring for land. They were putting land to, in some cases, better use than a building or a high rise or something, right? They were putting this land to use and they were caring for it. They were having stewardship over something, right? I think there's a lot of ways to define success. So I guess that's a myth I would just kick right out the door, is that success is getting to drive a Ferrari and having a mansion.
Yeah, I think you're totally right that we have this arbitrary, it can be a number sometimes. Yeah. If I were to make this much a year, or if I were to have this amount of whatever.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was $1 million. Now that doesn't get you much anymore.
That'd still get me plenty.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many Ari Alexas could have bought $1 million? No.
Yeah.
No, I think we all just have this thing, and I don't know, everybody, we can have the same thing or it can be different things that we've been, I don't know, just taught not even intentionally by our friends or peers or parents or families to believe that if we have this thing, we will be happy. Right. If we don't have this thing, we won't be happy. Exactly. I forget, again, I'm not good at remembering the names of the people that I hear these things from or that I read in these books, but they just said, you get this thing. Let's say I give you this thing. This, again, it's not even like, it's just materialistic, right? Most of the time it's materialistic. Yeah. I give you this thing, you have it. Yeah. What happens the day after? Like, what happens tomorrow if you have this thing? Yeah. What changes? And most of the time, if we answer that question honestly, and I'm not leaving myself out of this, I'm totally guilty of this same thing. Most of the time, if we answer that question, what will change if we have this thing? We're like, I don't know. Yeah. And some of the most fulfilled people that I've been able to meet and talk to are like nothing. Yeah. Like, He was the first or maybe second guest I had on this podcast, Kensington. I was talking to him and he's like, yeah, man, like if I was a billionaire, like if I was handed $1 billion right now, I'd be doing the same things that I am today, tomorrow. Like I'd still be going to the gym. I'd still be hanging out with my girlfriend, who's now his wife. I'd eat a little bit nicer and I'd maybe wear a little bit nicer clothes. But like my car is great. It gets me to where I need to go. You know, like, and at that point, you maybe buy a house in today's crazy market. Like, that's an exception, I guess. But even then, like, you don't need the biggest, best house to be happy. And the word that I like to use when you said it already is fulfilled. So, yeah, that's just my thought, just my add-on to your thought. That's awesome. So, have you ever seen these stories, these video stories or video life story videos heal something in a family?
I haven't firsthand, no. We hope that happens.
Yeah, of course.
We're allowing space through time for that to happen, right? I mean, as creators, we're not always able to see the impact that the work has, right? We would love for that to happen, and I'd love to figure out a way to get that kind of feedback from somebody, right? How do we find out what it's meant to someone, you know, even like 10 years from now, which seems like a small time scale to me when you're talking about somebody who's lived a life, you know, 10 years from now, what's this video mean to someone? I would love to be able to capture that somehow. But I don't know how. And so we haven't yet. It's a great question though. And I mean, I have to think on some level it happens, right? I have to think it does.
Sure. What is the general reaction from these? You say you usually get hired by the adult kids of these people. Yeah. What is usually the reaction you kind of get from these people when you show them or hand them the deliverables? It's
always better than they expected is really what it comes down to. And that's super fulfilling, right? To know that, you know, they've seen our work before they hire us, right? So they know in some ways what to expect and what quality to look forward to, but then to be surprised and sort of blown away beyond that is really fulfilling. Helps us know we've done a good job. And that's what we're shooting for every time is we want somebody to say, wow, I knew it was going to be good, but it's even better than I thought it was going to be. Because then you put their family into that, you know, into that template or into that kind of thing that we're working with, that expectation. And to see your own family member, you know, in a really cinematic setting, you can hear every word crisply, you know, the cuts are nice, multiple angles. Again, from the gear nerd perspective, it's very fulfilling to be able to have that and capture that. Yeah, it's cool to come up with a formula for that too. It really yields a nice product. Yeah.
So to satisfy the gear nerd inside of me, what gear are you guys rocking?
We're shooting on Sony. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So FX30, FX3?
We have an FX3 and 2 FX30s. And and then we got
fantastic
tons
cameras.
of other Sony.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just amazing. Yeah.
I've shot on a couple
really cool.
of them.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah. Trent uses Lumix for all of his personal project stuff, and I tease him about that. Tell him someday he'll get a Sony, but
yeah.
No, we really love those cameras. We really love the results they come out. And honestly, I mean, we don't even know them as well as we should or well as we could. There's so much more we can learn because there's so many features and so much they can do. Yeah.
I learned something so I shoot Canon. Yeah. And all my Sony friends are like, hey, when are you switching, you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, like the Canons serve me well. Yeah. And I don't ask the question to be like, oh, should I switch? I ask just as I'm like purely curious because I love hearing this kind of stuff. But just the other day, I learned something on these cameras that I didn't know before. I can't even remember what it was. Yeah. But like I've had these cameras for a year and a half, 2 years, maybe. Yeah. Maybe it's just been a year and a half. But I learn new things all the time. I'm like, I wish I would have known that 6 months ago. Yeah. But so you shooting with a boom mic to record, or do you have lavs?
Yep, boom mics. We used to use lavs, and we didn't get very good at hiding them. And when they're visible,
that's the thing.
It's just a little distracting.
A little
you know what
cheesier,
I mean?
just a little bit.
Just a little. I mean, it's great quality and it's super nice, especially when they're wireless and stuff. But the boom mic is just, is just sort of more bulletproof, right? As long as you keep it out of the frame. I mean,
Yeah.
And they have that tendency to kind of just sort of sag a little bit. So at the beginning, they're an inch above, and at the end, they're a centimeter below or whatever. And you're like, okay, I'll crop in just, 102% or something like that. Yeah. But no, it's that part of it. I mean, that honestly, the computer gear, whatever nerd in me is what really got me into it. But I felt okay putting that money out because just like a wood shop or a tool shop, I mean, it's a tool that you can use, right? And you can do something that you can make more with it than
it'll generate
what it is.
more.
Yeah, it'll generate more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fun getting better at stuff, right? I mean, I was telling my kids, because I do a lot of photography and my daughter's getting into it, and we were talking, and I just kind of had this realization, like, how much would it suck if every time I went out to take a picture, to shoot a portrait, or to do landscape or something, if every time I did an amazing job, like, that would actually kind of suck. If it wasn't hard to do, how boring would that be? Like, that would be lame. It actually is kind of cool that it's hard, and it's kind of cool that you make mistakes so that you can celebrate the victories even more, right? And so you can see yourself progressing. That's really cool. I actually like that. And I just thought, that's weird, because what we really think we want is to go out there and just knock it out of the park every time.
And have an easy piece of cake shoot.
But that's no fun. There's nothing enjoyable about that. Yeah.
Actually, for this very podcast, we approached, this is like the 7th time we tried setting up things up in this room. We tried it like being at the edge of this table, and it just seems like too far. Like it's too long. We tried it on that side. We tried it on this side. We tried it in this corner. We tried the light in different ways, and then I figured I just wanted one light source instead of having 3 or 4 lights. But yeah, it's not just that I showed up and I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I come and I'm like, okay, what are my options? And then even after examining, I can spend an hour examining my options, but until I go and try.
Yeah, you got to try something.
And point the camera and figure out, oh, that's not bad, but it's not fantastic either.
Yeah. There's some glare there. There's some this, that, whatever.
Yeah, and even now, I think the back wall behind me is just a little bit brighter than I'd like it to be, but it's okay. Yeah. We got it 85% of the way there. And that's that. I mean, that's good enough for me.
So now imagine solving that problem every time it's a different house. Because we purposefully thought at the beginning, like, well, our lives would be really easy if we had a studio. I mean, we're Family Crest Studios. The question is, well, where's the studio? Well, it's in your house, actually. Like,
it makes it more authentic to be in their house.
It does make it way more authentic.
Yeah.
That's where they are, who they are. And it's a part of them, right? Sometimes we'll go and we'll film and we'll ask the kids, hey, did you grow up in this house? They're like, no, mom and dad moved in here 3 years ago. So it doesn't have a huge meaning to them, but it is where they live now and maybe where they'll finish their lives. And so where someone is themselves is an important place to be, and that's our set. But man, we did one shot. We try to control light, so we'll black out windows and do all stuff, and then we'll try to recreate, the sun coming through the windows or whatever.
So
and we got through this whole thing.
Yeah.
So we got through this whole thing because we're shooting half day or full day, the sun's going to change throughout the day.
Right.
And it's going to look wildly different, and we don't want to have to correct for that, and we don't want it to be obvious if we need to cut things up that this was filmed 4 hours before this other part that chronologically we're showing you right at the same time. We got through this whole thing and we got back and we looked at the footage and we realized, although we had hit all the windows and we had controlled the light, they had a skylight right above us, or like one of those light tubes.
Oh,
and so every time a cloud would go out from in front of the sun, it would get a little bit brighter and then a little bit darker. And we weren't noticing it because it was so imperceptible while you're sitting there watching and talking to somebody. But you go at the footage and you just see go. Can you correct that? We tried a long time, and in the end, we were like, no one else is going to care. It's one of those things as an editor you care a lot about, and the family doesn't care. They just want to talk. They just want to hear their grandma talk or their grandpa talk. Yeah.
That kind of just reminds me of something that a bigger point that I would tell myself if I could go back and talk to my younger self of, and again, like most people really don't worry, but for those few projects that I'm like, I have to nail this. The point that I would tell myself is, eyes, like the human eyes, the human ears, we autocorrect a lot more than we realize we do. Our dynamic range is a lot better because I can look at your face and we don't have a window here. But if there was a window and I could see outside, I could see both at the same time. And a camera usually can't unless they're the same exposure. Same with sound. We tend. Obviously, this is a controlled environment, but in a crowd, we tend to pick out one person we're going to listen to instead of the other 50 or 1,000, however, whatever crowd size you're in. A lot of things like that. And once you get into filming more high-paced action scenes, you don't realize it until you start filming it, but our eyes add a little bit of motion blur to scenes. And with cameras, you have to either have a low shutter speed or add real motion blur and real smooth motion blur, RSMB, and post. Anyways, there's a lot of things, and the overarching point is that our eyes, our ears, our senses, we add a lot of correction just to everyday life.
Just so that things make sense to our brain, right?
Yes.
And then you also have to, so there's that attention to detail, right? Like you want to have that attention to detail as a director, or producer, or editor. Then you also don't want to drive yourself crazy, right? You want it to be good enough, but not better than it needs to be. And there's no point in losing your mind over it and pulling out your hair over it. There's a lot that goes into this stuff, man, and it's really cool.
It's fun.
It's really
I
fun.
really enjoy talking to people that get it, because most people, and it's not their fault and it's not bad, but it's most people that ask me, "Oh, how's work going?" I'm like, you want the 20-second version or do you want the 5-minute version that like you won't understand?
Trying to decide whether to do a voiceover or whether to do subtitles. I'm like, what? What's the difference?
I'm trying to decide if I should hire this person for a voiceover. Should I dub it over myself? Now the third option is, should I have someone AI it? And a lot of...
Well, and there's so many things in videography specifically that it can look just fine to your conscious mind, right? When we look at it, we go, it's great, but subconsciously, the angle's just a little bit off, or the focal length isn't quite right, or it just something, when we try to recreate sort of natural lighting,
it's not as easy on the eyes as it could be.
And so then subconsciously, everyone who sees it is just a little irked.
Yes.
You're trying to avoid that. Yeah.
Absolutely. The best movies and videos and content across all formats, magazines, podcasts, music, anything. The best content is the stuff that's the easiest to consume. It's the stuff that doesn't even take
It doesn't
effort.
put any stress on your brain. Your brain's not trying to comprehend.
It just feels so real. It doesn't even feel staged. Like, not even like, oh yeah, I can see Tom Cruise getting set up for this scene. Like, you can't, like, you don't even imagine it, like the behind the scenes stuff. The best content, it just happens, just effortlessly flows into your brain. And so how do you... That's the bigger question, is like, how do you do that?
Accidentally on purpose, basically, right? If you go onto those sets, they've got 73 lights and all these things to make it look like it's just normal. It's just real. They craft it. Yeah, they're amazing. People that can do that stuff are amazing.
I appreciate your time. I'll wrap up with one question.
Okay.
What would you tell somebody if you're having a conversation with them and you were asking them, how much do you document in your everyday life, or every week? It doesn't have to be every single day. Why? Tell me why I should.
It's a great question. I think it comes down to just that concept of time is precious. We kind of underestimate what we can do in a week, and we overestimate what we can do in a day. Our brains are designed in this way where we, these little occurrences that happen once, a baby being born is a big deal, but the little daily occurrences of what that baby experiences and what you experience with that baby added up are far more valuable than, let's say, footage of the baby being born, right? Which not everybody likes to do. I guess it's an acquired taste, but all those little things added up has much more value than the sum of its parts, right? And so if you just capture something consistently, if you just do something consistently, even if it's bad, even if it's not great, it's going to have far more value than maybe inherently it deserves to have, right? And so just do it, just try, just do something is kind of like our motto. Just do something. If it's not with us, just do something with a competitor, with your kids, with your nephew who's really good with his camcorder, like whatever it is, do something is really what it comes down to, so that you can, I guess, so that you can lessen the regret in the future. It's kind of like you're doing your future self a favor and your future children and grandchildren and family a favor, right? I mean, everyone's going to have a regret of some form. Like, I didn't spend enough time doing this, or I spent too much time doing that. That's just part of life, because we can't be in all places at all times. But you can reduce that by just doing simple things consistently, even if it's bad. I guess that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I love that. The times that I've hit record when I thought it mattered the least are the times that I look back and I'm like, dang, that was a lot of fun. And a couple of those examples, I guess, are just dumb videos that me and my siblings used to make together. Just like little skit videos we used to make with a GoPro, because that was our only camera, and that we used what we had. Times where me and my wife were on a vacation and we just like happened to record for a little bit. Or I've heard of people doing like little birthday interviews with their kids. Like every year they interview them on their birthday, ask them 5 questions. I think that'd be really cool to do with my kids when we have kids.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, just like the tiniest things, like you said, over time. And you don't have to make them huge. I mean, I tend to, if I'm going to hit record, I've got to make it perfect.
It needs to have some production value, right? Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes the more organic and just like UGC type stuff, user generated, just on a phone, the least production, the least like scripted or staged or planned stuff turns out to be the best.
Again, if you add time to something, even if the quality is not great, like in the rare occasion where someone has camcorder footage or Super 8 film they've gotten digitized or whatever, and they can provide that to us to add into the video. I mean, like, if you compare that to 4K 60p, 4K 24p, like what you can do even with an iPhone now, the quality is horrendous. I mean, Super 8 didn't even have audio. Like it was nothing. It was essentially, if you're just talking on the technical merits, it was garbage compared to what we have today. But that stuff looks so cool and so real, and so it's just like, there's just something really special about that footage. And I think the same is going to be true in the future when we're all watching like 16K lasers shooting into our eyes or whatever it's going to be. Like this really basic 4K stuff with the audio off our cell phone is going to have some nostalgic value to it, I think, too. So I totally agree with you, man. I love the idea that you've got GoPro footage of you and your siblings just screwing around and being goofballs. Like, that's awesome.
That is exactly it. Yeah. And I've tried to just bring that into like everyday moments, just like with when we're hanging out with friends. I'm like, hey, let me just grab a quick selfie, or hanging out with my wife's siblings. Like I consider them to be my siblings as well. Like I don't even say brother-in-law or whatever. Like they're just brothers.
My brothers,
you know. I try to just hand one of her brothers loves to ride dirt bikes. I just hand him a GoPro and say, hey, put this on your helmet and ride around for a while. Yeah, it's just. It's awesome. It's really fun.
Well, and when he's 80 and he can't ride dirt bikes anymore, I mean, it doesn't matter how slow he was going or how much he cheesed it on a jump or whatever. He's going to be like, that's sick, man. I can't believe that was me. I used to do that. And his kids, his grandparents are going to be like, that's grandpa, that's dad. Like, I knew a guy he's older than me, and he used to ride BMX bikes, and his kids don't believe him. Like, and he has no evidence of it whatsoever. They're funny. Like, I don't believe it. There's
that's
no
true.
way.
Yeah, you can use it as proof.
As proof. Yeah.
When I was in high school. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Cool. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, for
Good
sure.
chat.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
This is so much fun.
This is awesome.